Okay, I guess I'm going to kind of be making running coverage videos of this because it looks like there's been a bit of a delay. Getting my head around all the proceedings, to be totally honest, this isn't a very regular occurrence. It only happens every 10 years or so, admittedly I need to do my homework as well. But anyway, BBC Parliament's got very good coverage. They're currently covering Bercow's tenure. I didn't realise that Bercow had appeared on television, a TV game show in the 70s as a child, and then a little bit later a 16-year-old John Bercow posed a question at BBC Question Time in which he challenged Barbara Castle, very vocal, reminding me of a young William Hague. And I hadn't realised, I sort of had some idea, but I didn't realise he was pretty well to the right of the party in those days, such as the Monday Club, which was a pretty hard right anti-immigration party, and he was a strong Eurosceptic. So Bercow himself, it's ironic because in those days he was seen as a strong Eurosceptic. He is now seen as, according to the Brexiteers, I heard the word traitor yesterday, so this guy really does generate strong opinions. In 2015 he survived a vote of no confidence, and his watch hasn't entirely been scandal free. There has been bullying allegations, so it's not surprising that some of the candidates today have used an anti-bullying message in that regard. Just one word about Chris Bryant. I was saying little things here and there about some of the candidates. Chris Bryant wrote a comprehensive history of the Commons, or at least of Parliament, which I hope one day to get my hands on. I think that the role of Speaker, partly ever since Lord Tony Pandy in the 70s, actually probably Bernard Weatherill was the first speaker to be really filmed from the late 70s onwards. Betty Boothroyd became quite a prominent figure. C-SPAN used to cover coverage of the Houses of Parliament in her era. And Bercow, like I say, has become something of a celebrity. So there's that pressure of the fame and the public profile, but it's also a pretty demanding job. Not only do you have to have the commanding voice, you have to get the right balance. Bercow wants to be remembered as the backbencher's speaker. Whether he is or not is a matter of debate. But I think it's a really difficult job. I mean, you're under huge pressure from the bear pit, which is the Commons. You have to remember all the constitutional ins and outs. You have to remember the right procedures and protocols, and you have to remember members by name and by constituency. 650 members, so it's no mean task. I think having a very sharp mind, very strong tendency to remember faces and constituencies helps, and I think it's very difficult because on one hand I think a lot of the criticism with Bercow is that he's come across a bit pompous and overbearing. On the other hand, I remember the Lord Martin, Michael Martin, at times was a little bit weak. He just didn't seem to have control, and that is also not good. Boothroyd could be a dragon at times. I've seen some footage of her. Although, to be fair, she probably felt that she had to be, being the first woman in the role, she had to really assert herself. So it's a very interesting position. And of course, it has inspired the Westminster system around the world. One thing I didn't realise, John Bercow made a talk on the One Show. He kind of done a tour of the Commons. I hadn't realised that in the Blitz, when the Commons was destroyed by V2 bombs, or rather the V2 bomb attacks later on, apparently the Commons was hit no fewer than 14 times during the war. There were parts of the Commons chamber donated from across the Commonwealth. So the two doors on either end were donated from India and Pakistan, and the Speaker's chair came from Australia. I hadn't realised that before, so that's interesting. A little bit of the Commonwealth, a little bit of the British Empire, if you like, across the chamber, or the old British Empire. So I'm going to leave it here for now. I'll probably have a fourth video depending on the outcome. I know there was a bit of a controversy over delay. Ken Clark said it was unavoidable. One Labour member voiced protest at that. I think members were irritated at the what they saw as an unnecessary delay to proceedings. Anyway, Bercow really isn't going to be forgotten. Has he been good or bad for the speakership? I think it really depends where you sit. Brexiteers see him as nothing short of a traitor, which I think is a very loaded term. The rationale for that, I asked one friend or acquaintance why he was using that term. His argument was that Bercow has stood in the way of Brexiteers. He has been biased in that regard. I think the jury's out, really. I personally think Brexiteers have a very puritanical view of what they want, and I'm not sure that charge against Bercow is entirely fair. But anyway, see what happens. So at the moment, I think it's going to be down between Hoyle, Lang and Bryant. That's what I would speculate, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.